What was your initial reaction?
It was definitely a surprise. I got a lot going on at home right now. I got a new little boy that my wife we had number two on Saturday, so it's kind of a surprise. My wife actually broke the news to me about 10:30 last night, and I was really that's interesting. I think that a lot of people have sort of been looking at that as something that would happen in the future, in the near future, but to see it in the middle of the season is definitely a little surprising.
Um, what? Obviously, you know him a lot better than a lot of people do. What? Tell me a little bit about Coach Spurrier, personality-wise, just kind of your take on the man.
With Coach Spurrier, what you see is what you get most of the time. And the things that people on the outside see are kind of a carryover from his normal character, really. He really wears his emotions on his sleeve, and he says it the way he sees it, and he says it the way he feels, and he talks when he's really emotional a lot of times. And so, as a player, that can be difficult. There were plenty of times as a quarterback where, you're just dreading practice, or, what's going to be said the next time you see him or whatever. But all in all, you got to look at his whole body of work and see what kind of Hall of Fame coaching career that he's had, and he's been very successful. So, it's kind of Coach Spurrier's way, I guess.
Was it tougher on you playing for him as a quarterback than if you had been a running back, linebacker, or something?
Yeah, it's definitely harder, I think, for the quarterbacks. Most football teams want to see quarterbacks step up and be leaders, which is really hard sometimes when you're kind of getting constantly, put down by your head coach in front of the whole team. I saw one of my former tight ends wrote a little tweet that said, "My favorite part about playing for Coach Spurrier was him cussing out the quarterbacks when they didn't throw me the ball." So that's kind of a thing that you see. It can be difficult, but looking back, there's so many good experiences, and the further you get away from it, you kind of remember the good things, and so as far as my time playing there, I loved it and wouldn't change it, and it was something I'll cherish for a long time.
What kind of impact do you feel like he had on you, coaching wise?
Yeah, I mean, as a coach, you kind of put in and you do the things that you did as a player, and then coaching's kind of a profession of stealing ideas from other people. So, most of the things that we do in our offense, at ACA are things that were from Steve Spurrier's playbook. A lot of the same calls and same protections and terminology and all that kind of thing. So a lot of it from what I learned as a player is a huge carryover to being a coach now.
On the other hand, did you learn anything about how you didn't want to be as a coach?
That's the follow-up question to that. Yeah, and definitely. I try to give players the ability to sort of take things and run with it and not be micromanaged all the time, even though that's kind of my personality as a coach. But I try to do that, at least, put it on them and let them take some accountability and some leadership for the way that, practice is run and how we do things. So, I try not to be an overbearing type coach. Let the kids enjoy, football, especially on the high school level, which could be sometimes difficult when you're playing for Coach Spurrier.
What do you feel like his legacy is to South Carolina?
I mean, his legacy as a football coach in college is second to none, really. The way that he turned around Florida, which when you think of Florida now, you think of them as a powerhouse, but when he took over, they weren't. And then certainly South Carolina had never been very good. So, his legacy and his track record really stands on its own, and he's one of the best college football coaches of all time, and certainly an SEC legend.
How did he? Do you remember kind of your recruiting to South Carolina? How did he sell, coming and playing for him to you?
Yeah, one of the cool things about when I was recruited by Coach Spurrier is that he came down to our school. He kind of walked the halls and spent some time here. We went over and ate lunch at Cypress Inn, and he kind of spent the whole day here recruiting me, and I think recruiting's kind of a big thing. I think that's one of the reasons that maybe he thought it would be a good time for him to step down, is because college football is all about recruiting, and maybe he's kind of getting up there in age a little bit, and when people know you're on your way out, it's kind of hard to recruit. So, I'm sure there were a lot of different factors that factored into, his decision. But, he's Steve Spurrier, so he can kind of get away with it.
And that kind of mentality, that's kind of Steve Spurrier, isn't it?
Yeah, I think even the whole way that he is now, I guess, leaving college football, even though in his press conference he kind of left some doors slightly cracked open. It's vintage Steve Spurrier. His press conference that he gave was kind of funny and different things, but that's just how he is, and that's him. And Steve Spurrier is going to be Steve Spurrier, and he's not really worried about what other people think.